Hey guys, me Sam Stein, managing editor at the Bulwark. It's Monday, like 4:15. The reason I want to make sure that you have that timestamp is because things move so rapidly in the Trump years that by the time we post this, there might be 4 or 5 other developments, and you might be wondering why did he not include that? And that's just because time passes between when we record and when it's published, and I don't want you to think that I'm on top of the news. Before we get into what we're going to talk about today, subscribe to the feed. Always important that we get that subscription and do share the feed with others. Really important that we get this passed around. Today, we're going to be talking about massive changes at the Department of Justice. Obviously, we're only about a week in to the administration, but agencies are rapidly changing. And that's particularly true with the Department of Justice. A few massive developments have happened just this afternoon that in any other time period would have been treated as like major stories in their own right. But because they're coming in such rapid succession, it's hard to sort of figure out which one is most important. So let's just get into it. Earlier today, Fox Digital was first to report that the Justice Department is firing more than a dozen officials who worked on now former special counsel Jack Smith's team that investigated Donald Trump for two things. One was January 6th and the role that he played in interfering with the peaceful transfer of power.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol. You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong.
And the second thing that Jack Smith investigated was the retention of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. I think it was kind of expected that Trump and his new team were going to let go of these individuals, even though they didn't have to. So that didn't really shock me. What really did surprise me was the quote that was attached to the statement announcing the firings. This is from Acting Attorney General James McHenry. Again, this is an acting Attorney General because the actual Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has not been confirmed yet. We expect that she will be. Here's what McHenry said. He said that these dozen or key officials could not be trusted in, quote, faithfully implementing the president's agenda. So you might be wondering, well, what's so controversial about that, Sam? Obviously, he's the president. That should be, his prerogative. The truth is that's not really how it works. Department of Justice is not there to serve the president. Department of Justice is there to faithfully execute the laws of the United States and the Constitution and uphold it. That's why there's supposed to be some sort of political distance between the Department of Justice and the president. They are not the president's lawyers. They are the lawyers for the government, and they are there to protect our laws. So clearly that pretense is just thrown out the window. I guess that's that. So, dozen or so people who worked on Jack Smith's investigation are now gone from the Department of Justice. Jack Smith obviously himself has resigned, did so before Trump took over. A DOJ official speaking to Fox Digital said, quote, today, Acting Attorney General James McHenry terminated the employment of a number of DOJ officials who played a significant role in prosecuting President Trump. In light of their actions, the Acting Attorney General does not trust these officials to assist in faithfully implementing blah, 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 the president's agenda. The action is consistent with the mission of ending the weaponization of government. One might argue that the firing of them is the weaponization of government, but details. And here's the other thing about this, which is you can't just fire people. Yes, we all expected Trump would try, and obviously the statement about how they weren't following the president's agenda is kind of wrong, but you can't just file civil servants. These people were working on cases, and there's no pretext to say, oh, because you worked on this case, we therefore will fire you for it. It kind of pollutes the point of the law, which is lawyers shouldn't be judged by the case that they represent. But beyond that, there are protections for civil servants, career civil servants, that make sure that they aren't summarily fired. So we should expect a legal process to unfold. And in fact, NBC has quoted a number of people, including former DOJ lawyers, who say, look, they have civil service rights. They have due process rights. So yes, I think one thing we should be looking out for is, will these people file lawsuits saying they were unjustly fired? And if so, how will that legal process unfold? Second big story today, the Post picked it up. The interim U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., a guy named Ed Martin, he has asked two top prosecutors in his office to undertake what they're calling an internal review of the handling of the Capitol riot prosecutions. That's the prosecutions of those who rioted on January 6th. Yeah, this one, they're going all out in the other direction. Then the Biden administration and Merrick Garland, obviously Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice prosecuted hundreds of individuals who rioted on the Capitol that day. Donald Trump on day one pardoned basically all of them, commuted the sentence of those convicted of seditious conspiracy. And now, rather than just rest on that, Ed Martin and the U.S. Attorney for D.C. office is launching an investigation into whether or not the Justice Department and the intel community was politically biased in how it handled the prosecution of January 6th rioters. Yeah. So that's that. We are going to investigate how we prosecuted the people who rioted at our Capitol. I know there's been some legal questions about the statutes used by the Department of Justice to prosecute a number of those rioters. That's a legal question. The accusation that the prosecutors acted with bias is a political question, and we'll see how that one goes. The Post writes, in an email to staff Monday morning, Martin stated that he had appointed Denise Chung, chief of the criminal division, and John Hooks, chief of the fraud, public corruption, and civil rights section, to lead a, quote, special project, investigating the office's charging of more than 250 Capitol riot defendants with obstructing an official proceeding of Congress, a statute that the Supreme Court ruled last June was too broadly applied. And Martin wrote in an email, obviously the use was a great failure of our office, and we need to get to the bottom of it. He said he expected a preliminary report by Friday. That's pretty quick. 5 days. We'll see how that turns out. This is just two stories of what's happening at the DOJ. There are other stories actually about what's happening at the DOJ. So today, a couple of relatively big personnel movements at the DOJ. One of them is that the head of the public integrity section at DOJ has resigned. The reason the head of the public integrity section resigned is because that person, he was reassigned to work on sanctuary cities. You may be asking, well, that doesn't make much sense. Why would the public integrity section head be assigned to work on immigration enforcement portfolio? Well, I guess if I had to bet, it's because they thought that person would resign. And basically, this person had been hired by Donald Trump, actually, Donald Trump hire, but he was also tangentially involved in the Jack Smith investigation, so they sent him to the equivalent of political Siberia, and that person resigned. But that's not the only big resignation. Well, I don't know if this is actually a resignation yet. We'll see, but what we do know is that the Trump team is transferring Bradley Weinsheimer, who is the top career official at the Department of Justice, out of his job at as Associate Deputy AG. Glenn Thrush at the Times was the first to report this news. Weinsheimer is like this revered figure at DOJ. He was, I think, my old colleague Betsy Woodruff Swan, I think, called him or was quoting someone who called him the conscience of the Department of Justice. He was the person who was point for Merrick Garland on the special counsel report into Joe Biden's handling of classified documents. And when Joe Biden's lawyers objected to how the special counsel Robert Hur had characterized Joe Biden as sort of this old man who really couldn't be, put on the stand because the jury would find him sympathetic because he had a fragile memory. Weinsheimer basically told him to pound sand. He said, fuck off. Like, we stand by our findings. And that kind of underscored the type of integrity he brought to this post. He had been at DOJ for decades. Again, top official who is not the attorney general. He is now out of that role. I don't know if Glenn has any subsequent reporting about whether he's leaving the department entirely or if he's got a new role. Maybe they put him on sanctuary cities. We'll see. But Glenn does say that this is seen as a major move to install loyalists in key decision-making posts. So Yeah, massive. I mean, massive changes throughout the Department of Justice on all levels, and all of them pointing in a very singular direction, which is Donald Trump's people have come in fact, not even the Attorney General, who's not confirmed yet, but they've come in and they've basically reoriented our Department of Justice to fit with their agenda, with Trump's agenda. And I think we could be honest to note that presidents obviously set agendas through personnel, right? Like Joe Biden didn't appoint Jeff Sessions or Bill Barr to be his AG. He appointed Merrick Garland, and he did so for a reason, because he believed that he was more closely aligned with Merrick Garland's jurisprudence and worldview, and that's who he wanted at the head of the Justice Department. But Joe Biden also sort of made a point of saying, you know what, I'm not going to interfere with this stuff. I respect the independence of the Justice Department. He, Garland appointed a special counsel. He investigated Biden's handling of the classified documents. He investigated Hunter Biden. The Justice Department brought a suit against Hunter Biden. They got guilty verdicts. Obviously, Joe Biden kind of messed that all up with his pardon of his son and then his preemptive pardons. But does that sort of open the gates to what we're seeing now with Trump? I would argue maybe to a degree, but Trump is taking it way further than I think anyone has prior gone. I mean, even his first term, he didn't go this far, and we're only a week in. So we're seeing a massive, massive reorientation of the Justice Department. We should expect to see that accelerated in the weeks and months ahead. We should see prosecutions and investigations into those who prosecuted and investigated Donald Trump under the guise that this is all fair game because he was prosecuted too. We'll keep you posted on all this stuff. It's very rapid moving, and I hope I did a decent enough job explaining the wild developments that happened just on this Monday, the anniversary of our first week of Donald Trump's inauguration. So stay tuned to what we have coming here at the Bulwark. Subscribe to our feed, and thank you for tuning in.